Okay, Roy, I understand you now talk to us about the second and third of Aquinas' 5 ways.
Yeah, sure. The second way, then, is referred to as the argument from efficient cause. Again, if we treat it rather like the first way and divide it into four premises, or 3 premises and a conclusion. Like the first way, he starts from a fact about the world, and he says, firstly, in the world, events occur. Okay. Secondly, every event or effect has a cause. Thirdly, it's impossible for a series of causes to be infinite. And therefore, by conclusion, there must be a first cause. Okay, now, again, if we break this apart a little, it's complicated to the extent that it's not entirely clear what Aquinas means by efficient cause, and there's some dispute over this. And again, as with the first way, we need to refer to Aristotle. We've talked about these 4 causes. So maybe a good way of seeing it is that by cause, he means rather like because. So it's the asking the why question. Why does this happen? Because this happens. For example, if the window were to break, we would ask, why did that window break, but the other window didn't break? This is because. And then you could think of different causes. I mean, it may well be the material cause. It's what that window is particularly fragile, so the material is weak and therefore it broke. It may be what's called a formal cause. That is because of the nature of the window or the shape of the window is different from the other, so it's more liable to break, possibly. It may even be its final cause. The ultimate cause of the window is to break at some point or other. But also, you might want to argue there's an efficient cause. An efficient cause in this case could be someone threw a stone through the window and broke it. So there's something else that causes it to occur, in that sense, something external.
Something that's not part of its nature.
That's right, that's right, yes, good. Now, following on from this then, there must be an efficient... Aquinas argues that there must be an efficient cause that is not dependent upon anything else. Again, he argues that this intellectually must be the case. Perhaps the way of seeing it is that, I mean, again, you imagine the world as a series of events or effects. If you were able to lump them all together, put them into a big lump, every single event in space and time, they're all, nonetheless, equally dependent on something outside of it for them to occur in the first place. Otherwise, nothing would exist. If I'm trying to think of another example, for example, if you were to say that you could only tell me to do something if someone told you to do it.
Right.
So if you were to tell me to stand up, but you can only do that if someone told you to stand up. And that person could only tell you to stand up if someone had told him to stand up. Now, if that's infinite, you could never tell me to stand up. There has to be an initial command, if you like, in that sense. So this is why Aquinas would argue in that sense it cannot go on for infinity. In that sense, there has to be some kind of first efficient cause in that sense. Now, I quite like this argument, and I think, well, in terms of the problems with it, I mean, there's problems in terms of whether you accept that there's, I mean, if you could look at David Hume, for example, would argue that cause is there's not necessarily a cause and effect.
Yeah, would deny very kind of underlying causal assumptions.
Yes, that's right. So that's one approach you could adopt.
It's quite radical, though.
Yes, indeed. But in actual fact, Aquinas helps us because he's aware of the problems with it himself, and he does actually raise a counter-argument to his view, in which he says, well, he admits, in actual fact, that there could be more than one cause.
The cause doesn't have to be single.
It doesn't have to be single.
No.
Yes, that's right. So he actually admits that. So he actually says, well, again, all we can say is there must be something. Full stop.
Yeah, but something's quite a lot more than nothing.
Than nothing, exactly. Yes, yeah, that's right. Good. The third way is sorry, you have to cut that bit out. Should I just carry on?
Yeah, I think so. The third way sounds kind of...
Yeah, okay. The third way is the argument from contingency and necessity. Again, quite complicated but fascinating argument. like the first way and the second way, it starts off from a fact about the world. There are contingent things. Okay. Now, by contingent, he means, well, the phrase that Aquinas uses is things which are able to be and are not to be. We're contingent things. We are dependent on our existence upon our parents, etc. On our parents meeting at a certain time, in a certain place, and we will perish at some point. So we're contingent beings.
So by contingent, he means things that could be otherwise?
Yes, it could be other than what they are, and will also cease to be at some point. So it's an acknowledgement that, again, when we look at the world, things are born and they perish. Things are contingent. Most things are contingent. Now again, Aquinas says that even if you were to accept that time is infinite, he would argue contingency cannot go on forever. Really, because he's just picking up on what contingency actually means. For something to be contingent, it has to be generated from something else. So again, Aquinas says that intellectually, you can't have a continual, infinite process of generation. It must all originally have generated from something, which Aquinas would say is therefore a necessary being. It's necessary for there to be something from which everything else generates from, in this kind of way. I think probably the most famous response to this is from Bertrand Russell, who just, when he had this conversation with Frederick Copleston, he simply rejects the distinction between contingency and necessity. They're just things. So he denies.
Yeah, it's a long-standing kind of distinction, which has, as we'll see, importance in lots of areas of philosophy of religion. But so to reject it outright is quite a kind of big step.
Yes, that's right. And it kind of links to the ontological argument, because Copleston's response was, well, the fact that you're willing to talk about necessity means you actually know what necessity is, so you know the meaning of the term, and therefore you can't deny necessary being in that sense. And I think it's the ontological argument, the nature of God anyway. Okay.